For almost a decade, I've served as the rabbi in residence for Cafe Europa, which is the largest gathering of Shoah survivors in LA supported by Jewish Family Services. And I go there to be with that community twice a year. Once yesterday at Yom HaShoah, where I speak with them and I spend time, and once before Rosh Hashanah. And this community provides Passover groceries to survivors, to anybody that Cafe Europa identifies throughout the San Fernando Valley. And on my drive over there, I began to reflect on everything that I've seen over the last 3-4 months, everything that I've talked about, everything that I've studied that has occurred over the last 17, 18 months. As I travel around the country on this book tour, the more that I speak about the book and the more that I speak about Jewish pride and connection to peoplehood and the values that will ultimately pull us in the right direction, the more that young people ask me to come speak on different campuses. So for instance, next week I wasn't able to make it, but they're opening a Zoom. I'll be speaking to the Hillel at Tulane University on Tuesday evening. As the book gets passed around between families and between people, young people come and ask for answers. How should we respond? How should we react? And more than anything, I think to myself, you should understand that everything that we're seeing today, Jewish generations have seen before. And I constantly think to myself, what would my grandparents say if they were watching television and they saw what I saw today, which was a line of students standing at Yale University saying Jews will not walk past this line. Jews will not walk through this courtyard today. How could I possibly explain this to my grandparents who chose this country specifically because they had imagined that it could never happen here? What kind of advice would they give me? I'm almost certain that they would point me back to the voices of our tradition. They'd point me back to the wisdom that's emerged out of shtetls, much like Encino, California. There is a wonderful story in the Hasidic tradition about a noble family that lived in a province in Eastern Europe. And every night the family would have dinner on fine china, and they would have the prince play music and sing for them. And then one night the prince came down for dinner and explained to his family that he was no longer the prince of the province, but rather now he was a chicken, a rooster. And the family laughed. Until the following night, he came down, he said he no longer eats with fine china, and he began to peck at his food directly on the plate. And his family, they stopped laughing at a certain point, and they said, "Stop doing this. You're the prince. You're not supposed to behave like this." And the following night, he came down completely naked because roosters don't wear clothes. And he began to peck at the food. And the family began to reach out to doctors, the finest neurologists in all of Chist came to see this prince. Psychologists. The following night he refused to peck at the table, but rather take his food, pour it all over the floor, and he began to flap his wings. Doctor after doctor came to see the Prince Rooster, and the family had no choice but to call the wisest person in the entire region, who, of course, according to the Hasidic stories, was always the rabbi, always. The rabbi came to the castle, and he met the Prince Rooster, and he said to the Prince Rooster, "I know exactly what you're going through." He turned to the parents and he said, "I can heal your son." under one condition, that you not question any of my tactics. And the parents said, anything, Rabbi, anything at all. He took the boy up to the boy's room and he said to the boy, come on. He closed the door and the rabbi proceeded to take off all of his clothes. There they were, the rabbi and the rooster standing absolutely naked, and they both began to walk around the boy's room flapping their wings, acting like roosters. After 2 days, the rabbi said to the boy, my back is killing me. This is really not a good way for us to walk around. Does your back hurt? And the boy says, my back does hurt, actually. He says, well, why don't we walk around upright like men? But the entire time that we're walking upright like men, deep down we'll know that we're actually supposed to be walking around flapping like roosters. And the boy said, okay. So they walked around for 2 days around the castle, upright like men, but naked and pecking food off the floor. And then the rabbi said to the boy, at night, when we sleep on the floor without a blanket, naked, I get rather cold. Do you get cold? The boy said, I am cold. He says, well, since we're both cold, why don't we put on some clothes and use a blanket and sleep on the bed? But inside we'll know that we're roosters. But we're roosters that walk upright and wear clothes and sleep in a bed with a blanket. And the boy said, okay, it sounds great. That's exactly what we're going to do. And the following day, they came down to eat. And he said to the boy, do you like eating food with so much schmutz on it? And the boy said, not particularly. He said, neither do I. Neither do I. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to sit at the table wearing clothes in a chair because it's good for our backs. And we're going to eat off of the silverware. But inside, we're going to know that we're roosters. And the following day, he said to the boy, I'll tell you what we're going to do from now on. I'm going to walk out the castle. And I'm going to act like everybody else. And you're never going to know. Nobody will know, except you and me. When we pass each other on the street, we'll know that deep down there's a mark inside of us that we are roosters. And the reason why I know that you and I will always share this bond is because I carry the mark of generations of a tribe of people that has walked around bearing the responsibility of being different, of knowing deep down that we're different, of trying our best to put on clothes and walk upright and be with everyone. And sometimes it works and sometimes it's not allowed. But in the best of times and the worst of times, we always know when we pass each other on the street, no matter where we are, Jews look at each other and know we carry the mark of the rooster. And now, he said to the prince, you'll also know when you see me on the street that we share this identity that's deep inside of us. There is so much strength and courage and pride and agency and creativity and identity wrapped up in being Jewish in a way that somebody who's filled with hate and wears a mask and stands on a campus and says you're not allowed to walk in this direction can't even begin to scratch the surface of understanding. And the only people in the entire world who understand what it means to be my kind of rooster were sitting there in that room in Cafe Europa. And when I walk into that room in Cafe Europa, they don't ever have to explain to me who they are, their accents, the foods that they like, the songs that they like. Because it's all wrapped up in who we are. It's all part of the marking of what's going on inside of our soul, deep inside. The generation after survival decided that the good idea, the right thing to do about the survival was to bottle it all up so that we don't forget and put it behind glass in museums so that we could learn the story. There's an amazing sign sometimes where you're walking through a building and it says, in case of an emergency, break glass, because there's an extinguisher. The moment is calling for us now to break the glass of the exhibits. What used to be locked away for us to learn from, we learned as a history book, but we forgot because of the separation of the glass that what's inside the exhibit is actually already inside of me. It's part of the marking of who I am. It's in my DNA. For I'm the person in the black and white photo, and the person in the black and white photo is me. And if I ever thought that I was somehow different than the man in the black and white photo because my beard doesn't look the same, or because my clothes are different, or I speak a different language, or I walk a different way in the world, then I lost the fundamental truth that he and I both carry the marking, the proudest marking of the Jew. The marking of my neshama is the same marking that he had in his neshama, is the same marking that my grandfather had and his grandfather, and all of our grandparents and grandmothers have gone all the way back. We began to believe the fallacy that we were different, instead of understanding and learning the lesson from them of how it is that we're supposed to live as proud, strong Jews, how we're supposed to live as skeptical people and still believe in a humanity of loving kindness, how we're supposed to be witness to acts of evil and get up the next morning and greet our neighbors with a trust in society, how it is that we're supposed to walk out of a death march and profoundly believe in starting a new family in a new place with new beginnings and believe that it will work. The strength of the family members that we talked about, that strength is exactly what we need at this moment. That strength to begin again, that strength to face the world, that strength to know that not everybody's going to be nice to us anymore, and yet that can't change the way that we walk in the world. That strength to understand that nobody's coming to save us anymore, and yet we know we have each other. There are friends out there for us. We have to be stronger now and more committed to go make friends than ever before. The idea, the notion that we're looking for an answer out in the world, when my parents' generation spent all their time and energy and resources bottling up all of those stories into museums that we were walked through by teachers, and we thought we learned a story about people who lived long ago, when in fact it's those of us in the room right here who grew up being held by those stories, being kissed by those stories, being smothered by those stories. Know that those aren't stories. We're the legacy of those people. We are those people. We are those people. And no amount of standing upright and no fancy silverware and no blanket will ever fool us again. The mark is something that some of us have felt our entire lives. Some of us are just beginning to feel for the first time. But the mark exists in every single one of us. That's the beauty of what happened at Sinai. The beauty of what happened walking in circles in the desert for 40 years. The beauty of our Exodus that we commemorated 11 days ago. and the Exodus that we remember tonight. Tonight is not only about remembering those who were murdered at the hands of the Nazis and all of their collaborators. Tonight is about appreciating the strength, the conviction, the love, and the trust of so many who survived, who decided to begin again when everything in their life taught them that it would be for nothing. And they began again, and they created families and businesses and learned new languages. And they built institutions like the one that we're standing in. And they decided that Jewish life would flourish once more. Not exactly the same, but flourish again, indeed it did. And they did it for themselves, and they did it for their children, and they did it for their grandchildren. But in truth, they did it for humanity. Their lesson and our lesson is that as much as the world tries, the world can never remove the mark of the Prince, because the marking lives deep inside. The marking is something that we're not willing to live without.